San Diego here. Want to invite you to go check out Poblis. Poblis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out poblis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me is Adam Lemmeries and Daniel Zuri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. Be sure to comment in the chat room and leave any questions you have throughout the show today, and we'll try our best to answer them. Before we begin, Grid Network wants to acknowledge the passing of NASCAR Hall of Famer Jack Ingram, winner of 5 NASCAR championships. Adam, what can you share about Jack Ingram's career?
First of all, thank you for letting me talking about a NASCAR legend. Jack Ingram was born in Asheville, North Carolina, and ran at the 3rd mile track known as Asheville Motor Speedway. He competed alongside the legendary racing family known as the Presley family, racing against Bob Presley and later his son, former NASCAR driver Robert Presley. My dad knew his nephew, and Jack Ingram's race shop was outside of Asheville Motor Speedway. Jack won over 300 late model sportsmen and then Busch Series races. He was well known in the NASCAR community. He raced against some of the legends of the sport, names like Dale Earnhardt Sr., Sam Ard, Tommy Houston, and many others. We here at the Grid Network want to pass along our thoughts and prayers to Jack's family and friends and his race fans at the time of his passing. It was a huge loss here in the Smoky Mountains of North Carolina.
Thank you. Grid Network definitely extends our deepest condolences to Jack's family and friends during this difficult time. With that said, we have a lot of racing to discuss today. The W Series just finished up their season opener in Austria. We have NASCAR racing at Pocono, MotoGP, IMSA, World Rally Championship, and SRX racing as well this weekend. So let's kick things off with Daniel discussing highlights from the W Series race earlier in the day.
First of all, hello everyone. Thank you for having me always on the show. A great pleasure always to talk about women racing at the top levels of motorsport nowadays. As you said, Kobe, the W Series race season opener in 2021, it was 686 days since their last race in 2019. Then the pandemic came, and they were forced to miss the 2020 season altogether. So it was their first race after almost 2 years. And it was a mad race won by Alice Powell, a British racer, 28-year-old driver who topped the free practice yesterday, took pole position, and won in dominant fashion the first race. She was lights to flag ahead of everyone, and she finished ahead of Sarah Moore, so another driver that we had previously on the show here. We interviewed Sarah also. So great result. It's her first podium actually for Sarah. her best result in 2019 was a fourth place at the also at the season opener in Hockenheim. Amazing race for Sarah, was always in second place. She had a pretty good start and then slotted behind Alice, but then just behind them, it was a huge battle for the rest of the positions. Ultimately, Fabian Wohlwend from Liechtenstein took home the third place. But Belen Garcia, another driver that we interviewed and we had here on the show, was third for most of the first part of the race. Then she had a mistake coming into turn 6 and went off into the gravel. Unfortunately, she dropped back to 9th place towards the mid-race. And then from there, but she really did have pace to recover. But then there was really some huge battles, some accidents going on. There was really crazy second half of the race when Marta Garcia, all started when Marta Garcia was stopped on track due to an issue, a technical issue. We don't know yet what was Marta's problem. We might think that it might be a transmission problem. But then when Marta parked her car alongside the track, of course the safety car was brought out, and then it was like a whole new race in the final 4 minutes, a little bit like it was for Formula One in Azerbaijan at Baku a couple of weeks ago. It was like a second sprint race at the end. It was crazy with Jamie Chadwick that had dropped behind in the opening laps because she had an accident with Jessica Hawkins. She managed with the safety car. She had the opportunity to bench up again with the pack, and so she made some great moves to finish in 6th place. Actually, it was 7th. Sorry. But of course there are still some positions that are under scrutiny because of course for some contacts we might see Jessica Hawkins, who finished 5th. Maybe she can have a penalty. She's under scrutiny from the stewards. And then also Nerea Marti and Miki Koyama were the biggest movers. They made up 8th position each. So it was a really crazy race. Anyone that has not seen the race yet, we definitely encourage everyone to go check out the race in replay, because it definitely was worth it. I would definitely say that W Series is back in full force after 2019. They were an amazing championship back then, and the first race definitely confirms on the big platform of Formula One with Alice Powell starting off where she left in Brands Hatch in 2019. Last race she won it, and now she's back on top form with the victory.
The 8th round of the FIA Formula One World Championship heads to the Red Bull Ring this weekend in Austria and next weekend as well. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are tied with 3 wins apiece. The only other drivers to win this year is Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez. Red Bull Racing had a 1-3 last weekend at Circuit Paul Ricard in France. Do you believe you'll see Red Bull on the podium this weekend, or will it be Mercedes?
Well, Adam, I definitely think that we're more likely to see 2 Red Bulls on the podium this weekend than Mercedes. I think we're starting to finally see the momentum shift in Formula One. Before, I thought it was going to be Mercedes doing, having the 1-2 punch over Red Bull. And Mercedes has been, as you know, been dominating the sport for the last, well, actually, during the turbo hybrid era, nobody's been able to touch Mercedes, honestly. And now Red Bull, I think Mercedes has finally met their match. Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez. I think they're a great 1-2 punch to take the fight to Sir Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. As you can see, Valtteri Bottas hasn't exactly had the type of weekend that he's been hoping for so far. And in general, I think Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez have the upper hand over Hamilton and Bottas at the moment.
Last year, Lando Norris got a podium here. This year, McLaren has 110 points in the Constructors' Championship, comfortably in 3rd place, ahead of the rest with Mercedes power. Kobe, Does Lando Norris get a podium this weekend, next weekend, or both?
To be honest with you, Adam, I definitely think Lando Norris can get a podium this weekend. That McLaren looks really strong. I mean I know I just said we're more likely to see two Red Bulls on the podium than Mercedes. I think we could. I think well at least this week or maybe next week as well. I think we could see it on any week. We could see two Red Bulls on the podium and a Mercedes, or maybe two Mercedes and a Red Bull or Lando Norris. I definitely think that he has the potential to score a podium. To be honest, I'm saying all these possibilities and everything. I think with the podium finishers, I think it could be mixed up and it could be multiple different possibilities. But McLaren's gotten a lot better, so it would not surprise me if Lando Norris is on the podium in either race this weekend or next.
And I'll agree with you, Kobe. I believe Lando Norris has a shot to have a double podium this weekend, next weekend. I think he has a very strong. He I believe that he will get a double podium, and it should be interesting to see how the race tomorrow happens. We're stopping on pole. Hamilton, Norris, Perez, and Bottas after a 3-place penalty. We have Verstappen, Norris, and Bottas all lining up behind each other. Hamilton with Perez on the other side. Kobe, will there be chaos leading into the first two corners of tomorrow's F1 race?
I mean, it's always a possibility that we could see chaos at the beginning of a Formula One race, and I'm sure those run at the front of the championship, if there's trouble, they definitely want to stay away from it. Lewis Hamilton, it seems like he's a step behind Max Verstappen at the moment. If Lewis Hamilton gets taken out in the first couple of corners or at any point on open lap, that could be devastating to his hopes to repeat as a champion once again. And Max Verstappen, he wants to use the momentum and get ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the championship. And if Max goes out, loses those valuable points, he'll definitely be frustrated. And for Red Bull, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, they definitely want to win in Austria, which is home of the Red Bull energy drink, and they definitely want to do extremely well at home. And getting involved in an accident is absolutely something that everyone wants to avoid within that organization.
And I believe that the race will be very chaotic tomorrow. Going into the first couple corners, Lewis Hamilton is not starting on the front row like most of us have anticipated. So I believe that the race not at the Red Bull Ring will be one that a lot of viewers will be tuning into. Now it's time that we talk about the Tricky Triangle and a driver who has a lot of momentum going into this weekend. His name is Kyle Larson at a track known as Pocono International Raceway. Kobe?
Yeah, and speaking about all things chaotic, I think the entire NASCAR field is going to need something chaotic to happen if they want to take down Kyle Larson and Hendrick Motorsports, because that team is on an absolute tear right now. And we've never had a NASCAR Cup Series driver enter a weekend on a 3-race winning streak with the potential of leaving that race weekend with 5 wins in a row. That's almost unheard of nowadays. And that's exactly what Kyle Larson, Young Money, is trying to do at Pocono Raceway this weekend, the doubleheader weekend that NASCAR races today at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and also they're going to be racing at 3:30 tomorrow as well. And Kyle Larson, shocker, is on the pole today for race 1. Adam, you missed out last week, and you've been a longtime follower of NASCAR. Do you see any similarities between Kyle Larson's 2021 season and Jeff Gordon in 1998?
Oh yeah, because if we remember Jeff Gordon's year in 1998, he literally dominated NASCAR and went on to win the championship. Kyle Larson right now is on a planet of his own. We haven't seen anything. To me, we haven't seen anything like this in a long, long time, and it's going to take something to knock Kyle Larson off the podium. He's on a hot streak right now, and overall, it's going to be hard for him to. I believe that he is right now the legitimate front runner to win the NASCAR Cup Series championship. I believe when it comes to NASCAR, it's Kyle Larson versus the field. And Kobe, like you said, I've been watching NASCAR racing since I was a little kid, and I haven't seen anything like this for a long time. So, and when Jeff Gordon won a lot, we had a lot of fans complaining that he won a lot. And it's probably going to happen the same way with Kyle Larson. Well, all the fans that want to complain are just going to have to get over it because Kyle Larson right now is on a hot streak, and I don't see it ending anytime soon.
Yeah, Kyle Larson is definitely on a hot streak, and I agree with you. It's hard to see this streak ending anytime soon. While I'm not going to give away my pick of winner yet, I do think we're going to see Kyle Larson in victory lane this weekend, but I think his win streak is going to eventually come to an end. I know at this point it seems like I'm being really bold and out there with that prediction, but we know all good things must come to an end at some point, and I think this is the weekend where Kyle Larson's win streak will come to an end. And if Larson wins both races, he could be up to third place or higher in the grid ranking, depending on what happens in World Rally Championship this weekend. He's rated ahead of Denny Hamlin in our rating and grid ranking, but in Cup Series points, he's 10 points behind Denny Hamlin. And speaking of Hamlin, Denny doesn't have any wins so far this year. Adam, should the number 11 team start getting concerned about no wins and missing out on those valuable playoff points?
Oh yeah, because if I were Denny Hamlin right now, I would put all the chips in, and I would go out hard charging and start to get wins, because as we know, the NASCAR season is, because the playoffs are coming, will be here before we know it. Not only is Denny Hamlin looking for wins, but there's a lot of drivers who we haven't seen in victory lane yet this year. One of them is Kevin Harvick. If I were him and Denny Hamlin, I would go all out, try to start in the top 5, top 10, have a really good pit stop at each race, and contend for the win. Because right now, it doesn't look like to me that Denny Hamlin has a shot to compete in the playoffs for the NASCAR Cup Series championship.
Yes, and it's really surprising, in my opinion, that Denny Hamlin hasn't won yet. He's had some really strong races early in the season, and as we've seen since then, Hendrick Motorsports have really upped their game, and they're completely dominating the sport right now. Mostly with Kyle Larson, but Chase Elliott, Alex Bowen, and William Byron running strong as well. All 4 Hendrick cars running strong. It's been a while since we've been able to say that Hendrick Motorsports as an organization is almost unstoppable. And I'm wondering who in the world can take down Hendrick Motorsports. And if I had to make a prediction, I said this in my podium preview over at the podium finish. I believe that the one team that could potentially dethrone Hendrick Motorsports and end their win streak is Joe Gibbs Racing. And could Denny Hamlin be that one driver to end Kyle Larson's win streak? And right now, as we speak, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race is going on at Pocono right now on FS1. And the race got underway a while ago at noon Eastern. And tomorrow, the NASCAR Xfinity Series is also going to be racing at Pocono at noon Eastern. So a day of doubleheaders at Pocono, Trucks and Cup Race 1 today, and tomorrow Xfinity and Cup Race 2. And with that said, let's move on to Adam and MotoGP.
Thanks, Kobe. MotoGP is tomorrow, and a surprise is on in a surprise front row with Maverick Vinales taking the pole position. The best qualifying effort for him ahead of his teammate at points leader, Fabio Quartararo. Zarco second place in the points, will start 5th in the race. Kobe, is this the first race that Quartararo can just points race and just finish ahead of Zarco tomorrow?
Yes, I believe so. Fabio Quartararo, as I've said, is clicking on all cylinders right now and doing exactly what he needs to do. He's been dominant, getting those points, and now Fabio is at the point where he doesn't necessarily need to go out there and win every race. He just needs to maintain his consistency, go out there execute the game plan, get as many points as he can, and if he's in a difficult situation that might harm his points lead, he needs to know to be smart. So like if you're only capable of finishing third that day, don't try to force yourself to go after second and end up crashing and losing those valuable points. So I think Fabio's a smart enough rider to know what the situation is, and he'll certainly be ready to maintain his points lead and remain consistent throughout the remainder of the season.
And tomorrow in the race, we have an American in this race. He's starting last. His name is Garrett Gilhoff. The last time we had an American rider in MotoGP was a rider that everybody loved. His name was Nicky Hayden, the Kentucky Kid. He won the MotoGP championship in 2006, and Nicky passed away in 2017. Kobe, how significant is this to have a MotoGP? How significant is this to have a U.S. rider competing in the MotoGP race tomorrow?
Oh, Adam, this is absolutely huge to have an American racing in MotoGP. I know it's been a while since this has happened. I know you mentioned the late Nicky Hayden, the Kentucky Kid. I think when it comes to international racing series, it helps fans be more invested in that series. I know the fan base in the United States for MotoGP is not as significant as it is for Formula One, but I think if we have an American driver on the grid in MotoGP, we'll start seeing more people get into MotoGP and wake up early to watch those races that start early in the morning here on the weekends in the United States. Also you can see right now in Formula One that American interest in Formula One is starting to grow, and that's without an American driver on the grid. But I believe if Formula One, just like MotoGP, is able to get an American driver on the grid, things will really take off. And I know, Adam, you're a supercars expert. I know we've talked about this in the past about maybe an American trying to have a career down under in supercars. And like I said, I believe for the supercar series, if we had an American who decided to make a career down there, I think we see the interest rise in supercars, and it's also the same for, I believe, for MotoGP as well. What do you think?
You know, Kobe, this is really cool to see an American rider competing in the MotoGP race tomorrow. I can remember when Nicky Hayden competed in the MotoGP, and he was really, really dominant. And I can remember when he passed. He was a very successful rider, and throughout the years, we've had some great riders competing in motorcycle racing overseas. One rider that I can remember is Kevin Schwantz. He competed in the early 90s, and he was very successful. For me, if we could get a full-time U.S. rider in MotoGP, I believe the fan base would go absolutely crazy. I mean, you're talking about Formula One not having an American driver this year, or the ratings for each race on ESPN have skyrocketed. I believe over 1 million viewers watched the French Grand Prix last weekend at Circuit Paul Ricard. So we Americans, we love our world motorsports. But overall, if we could get an American in some of these top series that doesn't have one right now, I believe the interest would skyrocket.
Yeah, definitely. I also agree with you. I think the interest will definitely skyrocket, and in the future, it's going to be interesting to see if we'll see an American racing full time in MotoGP once again. I'm sure a lot of American race fans would definitely invest in the series if they see one of their own racing over there. And for the first time since 2019, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship returns to upstate New York. That's right, racing once again at Watkins Glen International. Teams are shifting back to endurance race focus this weekend for the Salem 6 Hours of the Glen, with all 5 classes racing: DPI, LMP2, LMP3, GTLM, and GTD. Interestingly enough, the Pro-Am classes LMP2, LMP3, and GTD require 3 drivers per vehicle for this race, while the factory classes DPI and GTLM have the option for a 2 or 3 driver lineup. In DPI, Ganassi and Meyer-Shank are the only two teams to stick with 2 drivers, while the others have 3. Wayne Taylor Racing was originally going to run the full season. They were going to run this weekend with full season drivers Ricky Taylor and Felipe Albuquerque. However, they decided late in the game to add IndyCar driver Alexander Rossi to the driver lineup this weekend in GTLM, BMW, Team RLL, and Proton Competition WeatherTech Racing. The privateer portion of the class have 3 drivers, but Corvette Racing decided to only bring their 2 full-time pilots. And you might be wondering, why in the world are we comparing 2 versus 3 driver lineups? Well, with this 6-hour endurance race taking place during the hot summer, and looking at the forecast on Sunday, the heat could definitely become an issue. The weather is expected to be partly cloudy, but the highs are going to be in the low 90s, high 80s, so heat inside the cockpit could definitely become a factor. Adam, do you think the teams opting for a 2-driver lineup will regret it, or does it matter whether or not a team has 2 or 3 drivers?
When it comes to endurance sports car racing, I like the 3-driver lineup because it's easier on each driver. I know how hot it gets inside those cars, and overall, if I was competing in an endurance race like the 6 hours of the Glen, or the 24 hours of Daytona, or Le Mans, or the 12 hours at Sebring, I would want at least a couple drivers alongside me, because, like I just said, it gets really hot inside those cars, and it's a lot easier. I believe that if a team has 3 drivers, it helps the team out a lot more, because with 2, you could potentially, if a team has 2 drivers, I believe that it's a lot harder. But if I was an endurance owner, I would want at least 3 drivers in my lineup when it comes to an endurance race like the 6 hours of the Glen.
Well, in my opinion, I definitely think that you're not necessarily at a massive disadvantage whether you have 2 or 3 drivers. I mean, we've seen a 2-driver lineup win the 6 hours of Glen before, so it's definitely doable. But for me personally, if I was a team manager for one of these DPI GTLM teams, I'd probably opt for a 3-driver lineup, because with the 2 drivers, especially with the summer heat and being so hot inside the cockpit, I like to have that extra driver to lean on during this race in case one of my drivers starts to get too hot behind the wheel, and then when drivers get hot, it really affects their performance. So having that extra driver, they can drive shorter stints, and we can save our fastest driver for the very end, so we can try to win the Salem 6 hours of the Glen. So if it was up to me, I'd definitely opt for the 3-driver lineup, just because it'll be so hot. And you can definitely open up the strategy instead of having both drivers driving more time, spending more time behind the wheel, and potentially being affected by the heat. So that 3rd driver definitely offers more opportunities to be more competitive. And I think Wayne Taylor Racing made the smart move to call in Alexander Rossi late in the game. And also, this is great for Rossi. Not only does he have a chance to compete for the IndyCar Championship, he can now compete for the Michelin Endurance Cup Championship as well. In the second Action Express Racing, Cadillac DPI is back this weekend for the 3rd round of the Michelin Endurance Cup. The number 48 Allied Cadillac, driven by Kamui Kobayashi, Simon Pagenaud, and Jimmy Johnson. And for the 7-time NASCAR Cup champion, his crash course education to IndyCar racing has definitely been filled with some ups and downs. This weekend, he heads to Watkins Glen, a track he knows well from his career in NASCAR, so he doesn't have to learn something brand new like his last IMSA start at Sebring International Raceway. Could a good weekend in the Cadillac DPI give him some positive momentum in what has been a challenging IndyCar season for Jimmy Johnson?
Oh, yes, because like you just said, Kobe, this is a track that Jimmy Johnson knows really well, going back to his NASCAR Cup Series days. And I wouldn't be surprised if his Cadillac DPI team gets on the podium. The 2 main drivers have a lot of success this year, and they're going for the Michelin Endurance Cup. I believe that if Jimmie Johnson has a really good finish this weekend, I believe it'll give him a lot of momentum going in to the rest of the 2021 NTT IndyCar Series.
Yes, and I believe that you need to find momentum anywhere you can get it. And I know Jimmie Johnson hasn't exactly had the season that he's wanted in IndyCar, but I think a lot of people have to cut Jimmy some slack. I've been seeing a lot of people have been overwhelmingly critical of Jimmie Johnson and how he's been performing in IndyCar, and a lot of people need to realize that Jimmy's in his mid-40s now. He's no longer prime Jimmie Johnson. Though Jimmie Johnson, we saw it win 5 championships, and it's obvious with any driver that are not going to be performing at that level forever, and their performance is definitely going to drop off. And we definitely saw a significant drop off in performance from Jimmie Johnson at the tail end of his full-time NASCAR Cup Series career, and then you add all of that in and doing something that he's not used to, driving those higher downforce single seater open wheel Indy cars, which is way different than stock cars, obviously, and Jimmy's definitely been using this season as a learning experience. And I think being a 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, I think he's definitely earned the right to race wherever he wants, whenever he wants, and as long as he's having fun and isn't a moving chicane causing issues for people, I think there's nothing wrong with seeing Jimmie Johnson in the IndyCar Series. And as you can see, he's been getting a lot better throughout the start of the season. He started off not being able to maintain the pack, and now Jimmy's able to maintain the pack, and he's also been able to set his car up in some positions to overtake. And in my opinion, that's definitely a massive improvement for the 7-time champion. So we'll definitely be watching to see what he does this weekend at Watkins Glen, as you mentioned, Adam, a track that he knows really well. So he doesn't have to start from scratch and try to figure out a new racetrack like he did at Sebring International Raceway in the springtime. And you can watch the Salem 6 Hours of Glen live on Track Pass and the NBC Sports app on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, and later that night after NASCAR finishes up Race 2 at Pocono, you'll be able to catch the race replay on NBCSN at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you love motorsports, you'll be able to watch a whole bunch of it tomorrow evening. And now, Adam, what's the latest going on in World Rally Championship?
Well, this weekend with the World Rally Championship, they're an event that is well known. The Rally Kenya, and as we're talking on the show, Terry Neuville is leading the event. He doesn't have any wins this year, but he's been very consistent in the top 4. OJ and Tonic are scored 2nd and 3rd. Elvin Evans, unfortunately, has retired from the race. 2nd place in the points entering the weekend, he hit a rock. Suspension damage beyond repair. Kobe, could we see Sebastian Ogier start to extend his lead, where catching becomes harder as long as he finishes?
Oh yeah, I think it's certainly going to be a solid weekend for Sebastian Ogier at the rally there. I mean, he's been doing everything he needs to do this season to be competitive and basically do Sebastian Ogier things. So I definitely think that he'll end up having a good points weekend unless he has like a major issue very late in the ball game here at the rally this weekend.
And I believe Sebastian Ogier right now is the driver to beat when it comes to World Rally Championship. The Rally Kenya this weekend is a very hard rally. It is well known, and if Sebastian Ogier can come out on top with a very good points haul, he's going to be hard to beat when it comes to the World Rally Championship. Now, Kobe, I think it's time we talk about SRX on the high banks of Eldora Speedway in Rossburg, Ohio.
That's right. It's a third week and halfway point of the 2021 SRX season, and for the second consecutive week, the Camping World SRX Series is racing on the dirt. Last Saturday night, Tony Stewart won at Knoxville Raceway. It was a fun battle at the end between Haley Deegan and Ernie Francis Jr. This weekend, Tony Stewart Series is heading to his track, Eldora Speedway. Adam, in your opinion, is Tony Stewart the favorite to win once again on the dirt?
Oh, yeah, because Tony Stewart has had a lot of success in his history when it comes to racing on the dirt. He's competed in the USAC Midget Series, Sprint Car Series, and Silver Crown Series. And as we saw last Saturday night, he ain't afraid. He ain't afraid to win on the dirt at Knoxville, Iowa. And for the fans at home, he owns Eldora Speedway. So to win tonight, oh, that'd be really cool for him. And I believe right now he is the overall driver to beat when it comes to the Camping World SRX Series Championship.
And before I answer your question, we do have a comment from a viewer in the chat room. Edward Hunter says that his view on the W Series that Jamie Chadwick has nothing to gain and everything to lose this season, especially after her struggles in FREC last season. And it was glad to see Alice Powell win. And so thank you. I would really appreciate you for sharing your comment there. And we certainly encourage all of our viewers to share their comments in the chat room as well. And to respond to what you were saying, I do think that Tony Stewart is the favorite on the dirt, and I believe last time we talked about SRX, I did say that I believe Tony Stewart was toying with the field, that Tony Stewart probably could have pulled out a lot further than he did, but I think in the best interest of the show, he held back and let the competition catch up to him, to at least make it somewhat interesting. But overall, I think Tony Stewart is the favorite not to only win this weekend at his track, Eldora Speedway. I also think he's the championship favorite because he's definitely he's out front now in the championship, and it's hard to see anybody catching him at the moment. And Ernie Francis Jr. he's currently second in the championship, 11 points behind, and he's really impressed a lot of folks in SRX. The Trans Am community have been well aware of his talent so far, winning multiple championships, and now he's in the national spotlight. After Smoke won last week's race, he had a lot of high praise for Ernie Francis Jr. As we reach the halfway mark of the 2021 SRX season, as I mentioned, Ernie Francis is 11 points behind Tony Stewart in the championship, and with the two heat races, the awarding points, and then having the main feature, while I don't see anyone taking the fight to Tony Stewart for the title right now, Ernie Francis Jr. can definitely change that in a heartbeat. Do you think Ernie Francis Jr. is Smoke's greatest challenger for the inaugural SRX title?
Kobe, I'm going to have to say yes. And it's pretty cool to see someone like Ernie Francis Jr. going up against Tony Stewart. And if we look back to the old IROC series, we had people from SCCA Trans Am competing with likes from NASCAR, most notably Tommy Kendall, Dorsey Schrader, and Scott Pruitt. So it's really cool to see Ernie Francis Jr. going up against someone like Tony Stewart, who's accomplished a lot in the motorsports world. And right now, if I were Ernie Francis Jr., I'd continue to what he's doing and go out tonight and hopefully get a heat win and start up front for the feature at Eldora.
Yeah, and those are some great points you brought up, Adam. Ernie needs to make sure he's earning as many points as he can in those heat races, and try to remain consistent, finish in the top three every race for the remainder of the season. And I certainly think that's possible for him. And I think it's really one of the great things about SRX is that the series is highlighting drivers who we normally don't see get attention in the national spotlight. A lot of people knew about Doug Coby and his success at Stafford Motor Speedway, but a lot of people didn't actually realize how good Doug Coby was, and it definitely brought up a lot of attention to the modified star in the Northeast. And after he won that inaugural SRX race at the track that he knows better than anyone else, he was able to earn a ride and make his debut in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series later this summer at Bristol Motor Speedway for GMS Racing. I think that's a really exciting opportunity for Doug Coby, and I know I've said this on the last previous shows. I wonder if it wasn't for SRX, will Doug Kobe be able to race in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series at Bristol and later on in the summer? And for Ernie Francis Jr., a lot of people have been praising him as well, like Tony Stewart did on social media. A lot of people had honestly never heard of Ernie Francis Jr. before the SRX series, and I've said on previous shows as well that Ernie Francis Jr. was a member of the 2008 NASCAR Driver Diversity class, but unfortunately for him, the stock car path didn't work out, so he kept racing Trans Am. And moving forward, since a lot of eyes are on Ernie Francis Jr. now, I wonder if we're going to see more opportunities open up for him, whether it's going to be open wheel racing, stock cars in NASCAR, or maybe a factory drive in sports car racing. But I know one thing: Ernie Francis Jr. seems like he's definitely the greatest threat for Tony Stewart to win the SRX championship. And last week we wondered if one of the two guest drivers would win like Doug Kobe did in the season over at Stafford Motor Speedway. Unfortunately, those two guest drivers, Brian Brown and the great Scott Bloomquist, could not get the job done. Tonight on CBS at 8 p.m. Eastern, the two guest drivers are Scott Speed and Cody Swanson. Do you think we'll see an SRX regular win, or could Speed and Swanson spoil the party?
I believe we will see an SRX regular win tonight. I'm really happy to see that in the series that there are guest drivers, and if the series continues down the road, hopefully they'll have more guest drivers to compete. I won't give away my pick a winner segment just yet. I will say that an SRX regular will win at Eldora tonight. And now it's time for everybody's favorite portion of the show. It's one of mine. Pick a winner. And we have a lot of motorsports action to get through. So Kobe, we'll start with you. Who do you have winning race 1 at Pocono International Raceway this afternoon?
Okay, well, beginning with race 1 at Pocono, I think the hot streak is going to continue for Hendrick Motorsports. That's why I'm going with Young Money, Kyle Larson to win race 1, and also going to give you my pick for race 2. I think that's where Kyle Larson's streak is going to end, and I think it's going to be a driver from Joe Racing. We talked about him earlier in the program. I think Denny Hamlin's going to get that first win of 2021.
I like your picks, Kobe, but I got to go with Young Money, Kyle Larson winning race 1, and the second race, I'm going with his teammate Chase Elliott to capture the crown. Now we'll move on to let's move on to Formula One at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. And Kobe, who's your pick?
This is a tough one. Do I go with Hamilton or Verstappen? But honestly, I think the momentum has swung in the favor of Red Bull, so I'm actually going to go with Max Verstappen to win once again this week.
That's a very good pick, Kobe, and I'm going to have to agree with you. It's at the Red Bull Ring, so why not a Red Bull car take the crown? Now, let's move on to World Rally Competition in Kenya. Kobe, who's your pick?
I'm going to go with Thierry Neuville to win Rally Kenya.
And for me, I believe I picked on Twitter Sebastian Ogier. Now it's time for the MotoGP race at the Circuit Assen in the Netherlands. Kobe, you're up.
Oh boy, this is going to be really hard, but I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say Zarco wins.
That's a good pick, but I'm going to have to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Maverick Vinales captures the win at the Circuit Assen in the Netherlands. Now it's time for our pick regarding SRX in Eldora. Kobe, who you got?
I'm gonna go with the driver that I should have picked last week. I want to go with the driver who I believe is the best on the dirt, and that's gonna be series owner and track owner Tony Stewart. Is gonna be 2 in a row. Last week at Knoxville and tonight at Eldora Speedway.
You know, Kobe, I'm gonna have to go along with you and say I'm picking Tony Stewart to win on the dirt as well. It should be a very interesting weekend of motorsports action across the world. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow night, 90 minutes after the NASCAR race at Pocono for Grid Live Wrap-Up. It'll be Kobe, myself, and Ben Schneider as we discuss all the motorsports action from across the world. Kobe, it's time for the closing.
Well, actually, Adam, you forgot one thing. You forgot to do the pick a winner for the IMSA race, and I'll start that off. And for IMSA, I'm going to go with the number 10, Wayne Taylor race in Acura DPI, Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, and Alexander Rossi. Who do you think is going to win overall in DPI?
That's right. I forgot that on Twitter as well. But overall, I'm going to continue this success. I'm going to say the number 01 Cadillac DPI wins 2 in a row at Watkins Glen tomorrow.
And now it's time for the closing, and we want to remind all of our viewers to please like and subscribe to Grid Network on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're all over social media. And if you haven't had a chance to say your pick a winner, we definitely encourage you to tell us who's going to win each race this weekend in Formula One, the 2 NASCAR races at Pocono, MotoGP, IMSA, World Rally Championship, and SRX. And if you get your pick correct, you'll enter our leaderboard here. As you can see, looking at the pick a winner standings, Joe has a 1-point lead over Adam, and then Matt and I are 2 behind, and Ben Snyder from Grid Live Wrap Up rounds out the top 5 with 5 points. So definitely you want to try to get on the board and see if you can come get us with pick a winner. And definitely we also encourage you to invest in Grid Network. Take 5 minutes after the show and look at our Patreon page. Special thank you to Colin, Mark, and DeShell for everything you do supporting Grid Network. We definitely appreciate you for keeping Grid Network on the air long term. And if you click the Podbless link, you'll get a 10% discount on any purchase you make. Consider using that link to get something nice for your furry friend. And as Adam mentioned, tomorrow we're going to be back on the air 90 minutes after the second NASCAR Cup Series race of the weekend at Pocono Raceway. And before we go off there, definitely want to say a big thank you to Daniel Zuri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet at the end, for his recap of the W Series season opener, with Alice Powell getting the first win of the season. And for our supercars expert, Adam Lemmeries, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching and enjoy the races.
Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Poblis. Poblis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out Poblis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.